This is Good Girl Gone Human, an ongoing conversation that serves the frequency of rehumanization. We believe that in striving towards being good and away from being bad, we can lose touch with our humanity and uniqueness. Our hope is that in expanding our capacity to accept our own humanity, we expand the capacity to accept and hold each other's humanity as well.
We welcome uncertainty and questions with curiosity. This is not a roadmap for the right way to be human. We hold tenderly how seductive and human it is to reach for a formula that will provide a sense of certainty and safety. This is not that place, but rather a place for dropping into our big, messy questions.
This isn't just for the recovering good girls out there, but for every human who desires to peel off the layers that hide the wholeness of who they are.
We want to tell the stories of how messy and complicated and beautiful it is to find ourselves in the aftermath of this shedding. There is space for your story, and we want you to join us on this journey of rehumanization.
Hello, humans. Welcome back to another episode of Good Girl Gone Human. Hi, Kristina.
Hi, Holly.
It's good to be with you, friend. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here today, and sitting here with you every time is just a really sweet process, and I'm feeling excited about today.
Yay. Me too. Today feels different for some reason. I feel a more settled inness, which is so cool because we did a new thing. Went from never doing a podcast to now this is our 8th episode. And that's significant for us because we set out to do 8 episodes for our first batch or first season. So this is us like winding down the season, and this episode's going to be actually us reflecting on how creating a podcast about humanizing ourselves after a lifetime of hustling to both be good and be seen as good. Like creating a podcast around that has brought up a lot of good girl programming. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind to create a podcast because we're not just podcasters, we're mothers. Kristina has a job. I have like this human design business I want to start. Everything's in kind of chaos because being human is kind of chaotic. So we're ending this batch of episodes to just sit together and connect as friends on how so far this journey has led to even like a deeper initiation into humanizing ourselves.
Yeah, totally. As you're saying that, I feel really proud of past us for starting this when we did, because there's such a conversation when you want to create around like, when is the right time to start something? And this podcast, this first batch, is evidence that there's never a great time. Sometimes are better than others, maybe, but life is always busy. Life is always crazy. It's unexpected. And I just feel really proud of us that we decided to start when we did, because things have just always been compounding and we could have waited and not even started still. And so to think, oh my gosh, this first batch is done. We're really proud of how it turned out. We're really excited for the springboard that it's been for the next batch of conversations. And just as you were saying that, I was settling into the reality of how proud I am of us,
Yeah.
Because it has stirred up a lot, but also I feel really proud of what we've created and just grateful that we took the risk.
Yes.
And dove in.
Totally was a risk. I feel proud of us too. And it honestly was kind of a bad time. We didn't know that. And so that, like, I could feeling the weight of your words of like, it feels like if we were in that mindset of waiting for the perfect time, we would have pushed it off. And even thinking about I thought about this a lot. If I was doing a solo podcast, I would have been like, no, life is insane. I'm not going to do that. But we had each other. And that's been a really sweet lesson for me that I don't have to I think my healing journey was like, okay, isolate and take care of yourself until you're ready to reemerge in the world. Nothing wrong with that. But this is kind of the first time I've had any sort of collaboration like this. And this has been a desire to share my voice for a really long time. And I'm feeling super grateful that we did this together. And also me moving towards people and like realizing I can't just isolate when I'm scared of losing belonging or like whatever has been probably one of the biggest lessons that I have and am learning from doing this podcast of leaning into other people instead of away and really wondering, am I safe? Is this okay? Am I going to be rejected? Am I going to reject myself so that I don't lose connection with you? Mm-hmm. All these things, I'm actually remembering our very first episode that we talked about have come up in real time for me. And it's kind of been, I've wondered if I've like, am I a hypocrite? Like, as with these episodes are rolling out, I'm like, I feel like a scared tiny baby little girl that really wants to be seen as really good and saying all the things right and not ruffling any feathers. And then I'm like, oh no, this was supposed to be different than that. So it's been like kind of a tense thing to hold.
Yeah. It's like, this is supposed to be different than that. And of course, it's bringing up all this stuff. Like you said, when you partner with a frequency, which for us is this frequency of rehumanization and this frequency of not striving towards just being seen as good or feeling like we're good, that's going to like initiate us into other things too, because we're showing this openness, right? And now our eyes are open to it and we're talking about it and we're having conversations with other people who have listened to episodes, but even with each other. I love that you brought up the partnership part because we talked a lot about the era of collaboration in that first episode. And there are times where you're like, of course you could go, this would be easier if I was just by myself because I could just do it the way I want, or I could da-da. And then there's the flip side of that coin. Oh, this would be really, really hard to do by myself because I need that partnership and encouragement and someone looking back at me and saying, we're okay, right? We're going to be okay. And celebrating like every little follow that we get and every comment and every person who's connecting with us about how this is impacting them, to share that with each other is like a dream. Yeah. But also, yeah, like, I mean, part of what we want to talk about today is just some of those things that have come up and what we've been processing through. And I think a big part is this like collaboration piece and each of us being in our own process of what good girl programming we're even stripping away and recognizing that actually it's different. Like it's the same idea that we want to be seen as good. We believe there's good and bad and like all that stuff was in our head. And now we're going, wait, can I be all of it? But how that looks is really different for each of us. And so we've had opportunities where it's like, hey, like that, am I safe here moment? Like, can I say this? And then, oh, can I feel this? And moving towards each other has been a really big part of this process. That's been really vulnerable and like a big mirror. I mean, the podcast is a mirror that's holding our own shadow and our own light up to ourselves, but also each other. You know, I feel like that's been a really big process to hold the nuance of how our experiences, even though they fit under this umbrella and they fit in this conversation perfectly for both of us, is really different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you highlight that because it also feels to me, of course, with the way I see the world, a nod to human design, which if you haven't listened yet, we had an episode on that. But we are different. We did connect over, we're the oldest daughters. We are, have left Christianity and we're picking up the pieces after that. But that doesn't mean it's the same and that we have to believe the same and that our inner process and journeys with this have to be the same. So I am curious, like, how has this been for you? It would be really cool to kind of sit with those differences and hold each other and witness each other's experiences.
Yeah. What I was thinking about as I listened through the episodes and then I'm living my life, like you said, am I a hypocrite? That like thought of just, I want to be living this out and then just being confronted with it all the time. And getting brought up a lot for me is this idea, which I think is good girl programming, is that I have this deep belief that there's a right way to do things. And if I just did things good enough, my life should be okay. Like there's just this deep belief that I'm holding, and I don't consciously think that. I think I know in my heart that that's not true. I've seen people have really, really hard lives who are doing a lot of things really, really right. So I know that that's not true. But the thing I'm confronted with a lot is like, okay, that it's just the mentality, the good girl thing behind it of like, I'm still trying and striving to be good at life. That's the way I could, like, am I doing this right? Am I good? Am I good? And looking around for like all this external validation, but also internal validation. I'm my hardest critic for sure.
Yes, you are.
And so, yes, those who know me know it's like I'm learning and I am settling in because of all this work to the reality that like I think I'm okay as I am right now. We were talking about this on my birthday. It's like, what have you learned, in these 35 years of life I've lived? I just turned 36, and it was like, I'm learning that I think I'm okay. I'm always going to have a list of things I want to be better at. I do want to be really good at life, at being a mom, a sister, a daughter, a friend, a podcaster, a coworker, all these things. I want to be good, but it's coming now from a place of like, I want to be good for my community. I want to be good. The good means something different. It doesn't mean perfect, and it doesn't mean without darkness, without error, without like my humanity. I'm trying to learn how to hold both those things that I still really want to
What
be.
does the good mean now?
I think it's I think a word I could use instead is maybe authentic. When you ask that, like, to be good, you've said it before, is to be like the most Holly I can be, right? To be a human. And so it's like, that's the word that pops in my head when you just asked that, is like maybe part of that. There's no one word that's going to encapsulate what I mean when I say good, but authentic, true, wholehearted, open-hearted, that's what goodness looks like. But it really does contain the multitudes.
Yeah.
It contains my light, and it contains my shadow and my darkness for sure.
Yeah.
But I just really keep hitting this thing like, I know the right thing to do, quotes, air quotes. I know the right thing to do. I have high like value and morality and all these things in me. And so when I'm confronted with this part of me that doesn't feel good and like wants to do the thing that's like opposite or in opposition to what I think might make a more unruffled life, and then I find myself doing those things, I am able to sit with a little bit more like, okay, you're doing that thing that you kind of wish you wouldn't. Do I even have to like dissect the heck out of that, or can I just own that part of me that's allowed to make mistakes? Because I truly have never given myself permission to be the kind of person who makes mistakes. And I would just beat the shit out of myself if I did.
Yes.
But even here's like a funny small example. I was in Trader Joe's a couple weeks ago, and I picked up a big glass bottle of that like lemonade stuff, and I went to put it in the cart, and I put it in the like baby seat section, and it just slipped right through, and it shattered everywhere.
No.
Like pop and drink everywhere, and like the employees are looking at me, and this is like a silly example because I didn't do anything wrong. I made a mistake, right? But I would have ruminated on that and felt so bad for so long that like the people, and it was coming up in the store where I was like, I am so sorry. And this sweetie little Trader Joe's boy was like, did you throw it on the floor on purpose? And I said, no. And he goes, okay, then you're good. And it was the sweetest thing ever. Yeah. He goes, did you throw it on the floor? He's kind of joking. And I was like, no. I was like, yeah, boom. But I was like, no. And that's the arc. That's the lesson. Like, can you just drop a bottle every now? Does that happen? Do bottles just drop and
Metaphorically
stuff
drop a
goes
bottle
everywhere, and other people have to literally clean up my mess because I'm not allowed in Trader Joe's to like start picking up glass. They have a system, and they came in, and by the time I was at the checkout, their little like Zamboni cleaner thing had come through, and it was like nothing had happened. except one of the workers was like, it smells like Jolly Ranchers in here now. Like, it smells kind of nice, you know? But that's the picture. Like, sometimes I feel like I am throwing the bottle on the floor on purpose and I'm making these mistakes because I'm trying to learn my way. But I'm able to hold myself with so much more sweetness because I'm allowing myself even to consciously kind of like make mistakes or go outside of this box that I've put myself in for so long.
Yeah.
So it's a lot, but you know,
That was
that's
really
like the big
beautiful.
stuff that I'm
Yeah.
being really confronted with is like wanting to be good still, you know, like
Yep.
through gritted teeth, I'm just like, be good, you know?
Mhm.
And then also being like, okay, well, what does goodness mean? Am I allowed to make mistakes? A lot of that has expanded through our conversations and through sitting with you and seeing the way you live your life, honestly. And we interact with things really differently sometimes, and we see the world really differently a lot, but in like a fun way.
Mm.
And I learned so much from you about just like the word I want to use is like, we say radical responsibility, but it's almost like this ruthless like self-care. And I'm learning so much, you know, just from witnessing you. So I'm really grateful. But I want to throw the question back to you too. Just like,
Can I respond to
yes,
your
you
stuff
can. You
first?
can. I'm like, okay, talk about Holly. That's the right thing to do now.
I know that
Be a good
feeling though
co-host.
of like I have talked this certain amount of time and it's your turn. But
Yes, you may respond.
you are a good co-host, so don't even worry about that. But I think that's a beautiful story and how simple it really can be. Of like sometimes I drop the bottle. Does that mean I'm good or bad? No. Even sometimes like I want to experiment metaphorically of dropping the bottle because like I just need to see if I'm even okay. Like so you and I have connected a lot about how our inner teenagers are coming out a bit because we were very good girl teenagers and so they kind of want to fuck things up sometimes.
Yeah.
And so like even the like if you throw a bottle on the floor, would you be bad? I mean, literally in Trader Joe's, I think that would be bad. But metaphorically speaking,
Let's not.
but let's not do that. But what's standing out to me as so beautiful, and I do have a follow-up question for you about it, is you were talking about that you do want to be good, but it feels different now, and that you brought up the word authentic, and I love that. It's super cool because I've been thinking about authenticity nonstop. We haven't had a full conversation about it, so it's just cool. It's just like in the air, but you are someone who I've loved like learning from you and watching you really be somatically aware, very aware of your body and how you're feeling. And we've talked a bit about how you consider yourself, sometimes I want to push back when you say this, but consider yourself thinking repressed. But like the reason I highlight that is you are very heart-centered and feeling and like, what does my body need? So my follow-up question is, I'm even playing with the idea that we're not throwing out goodness. Like it's okay to want to be a good podcaster. Like our listeners benefit from us not being throwing bottles everywhere and being like so random. We are so intentional and thoughtful and we want to do this well. And that is like, in a way, it's good. But there is a fine line of we can lose our authenticity if then you go down, okay, what do our listeners want to hear? What should I filter out that feels authentic to me so no one gets mad? Anyway, long-winded way to get to my question of somatically, what's the difference do you notice of being that, like you even said through gritted teeth, good, and relaxing into your authentic expression in the world?
Somatically, like in my body, there's more ease, you know, there's less stress. I think like the anxiety piece of trying to be good, the good through gritted teeth kind of good, is like hyper vigilance and trying to be codependent, right? Like taking care of your needs before my own. And it's just very like busy and loud and very aware, like hyper aware of other people. Like you said, what do our listeners want to hear? And then we lose the thread, you know? When I'm leaning into goodness from this authenticity place, Like I feel more ease. Like if I'm showing up into places as myself, I don't have to do as much of that mental gymnastics of who do these people need me to be? Who do I need to be for them? And, all the like run around that we can do sometimes when we're trying to be good for the sake of other people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm living authentically, the word that just comes to mind is ease. Like there's way less of this dance I have to do to make sure that everything is like in order.
Mm-hmm.
And that ease impacts your entire body, like the stress, your health, like all the pieces of it. Even with parenting, like being like, I just want to be a good mom. And it's like, okay, good moms can look a lot of ways,
True.
and we can settle into just the ease of like, this is what I have to offer today. I'm actually going to protect my energy and not give this much. It's self-centered in a really sweet way where like, of course I need to be centered in my own life. Like that's the point. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a roundabout way, but just ease
No,
is the
yeah.
word that comes to mind.
Yeah. I could see that from you and feel that from you. And I'd say I really relate to it. I think that when I mentioned earlier, like worrying if I'm a hypocrite, I think I was feeling even somatically like that tension and that teeth gritting and that anxiety. For me, it's extremely scary to be seen as me. Um, and so I've had so many moments in this podcast journey so far where I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Because I can't with the false modesty, like, oh, I just don't even need this. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, my true authentic self is I wanted to talk into a microphone about what I've mapped out in the world. I've had all these experiences and I want to share them. And to be that honest with myself is really vulnerable because I think a lot of the good girl programming I've put down is like this self-sacrificing, so I could easily come on here and be like, I'm here to be of service and all these, like, try to offer you something in this way where I'm actually not being vulnerable. I'm actually like kind of guarding who I am and then putting a ton of effort into making sure everybody gets what they need and everybody hears from me what they should. And I protect them from some of my maybe more fiery opinions, I want to say. And I think it's been this really interesting, like when we're talking about authenticity, I really want to see what happens when I share my voice because I think I have shit to say. And what if it's okay to say that? And also, what if there is a shadow part to that? Like, one of my biggest wounds that I carry around is worried that I don't matter. I'm always looking for evidence to support or like the wound that like, oh,
See,
turns out I don't matter, and always looking to hurt my own feelings, not on purpose, but that is some of the work we've talked about on the episode so far is like with that observer, like, ooh, I observe like, okay, I'm doing this big thing and oh, it turns out I did it. I put out the podcast and like, I don't matter as much as Kristina. She's getting more feedback than me. Like that's one thing and it's not even true, which is why I'm like hurt my own feelings kind of thing. But I think what's authentic to me is like, I could slow down and be like, what's under this? What's under this is a desire to impact people. There is like a service part of it. Like when I was isolated and alone and lost and didn't have a community and I was just going through so much and it was so heavy, losing so many people and places and things, losing my own inner sense of identity with leaving, like shedding so many layers. Honestly, turning to Instagram and seeing people put words to what I was experiencing. And there's the whole social media conversation of like doom scrolling's bad. Like I think you sent me something about like we don't doom scroll, we hope quest.
Yes.
You sent that to me, right?
Yes.
And I love that because sometimes I am doom scrolling and then somebody will say something about parenting and I just needed to hear it that day. And I just think it's part of our culture right now. It's beautiful. Let's lean in. And I think that, a lot like my wound of not mattering, I'm like, I didn't want to endlessly be just consuming all these people that were like creating this content that was helping me. I wanted to like get in the ring. I want to get out there. I think I have some things to say. And wow, look, we did it. Here we're 8 episodes in, and that's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening even in the journey of, I kind of skipped over this part of it, but feeling like really disconnected from the podcast, but then like picking myself up and gathering and like recording with you and then being like, that actually was really good. It's all in me, even when I'm having a bad day. And I'm allowed to show up in the fullness of me. I don't have to be the same, like shiny, ready to like be so articulate version of me. I could be meh.
Yeah, and can be you. You said like, what would happen if I, showed up as me, if I actually give myself my voice? And the thing is, like, all the other voices you've heard are already out there. And so when we dampen ourselves, it's not a gift to anybody ultimately, right? Because or if we're trying to mirror, we talked about it even as co-hosts, like not trying to like mirror each other or like be the same, right? It's easy to be like, okay, we're in this serious mode together, or Christina's really positive about this and I'm not, I'm pissed about it. Like, can we play with that? And we want to, and we're learning how to not like merge, into each other and to stay separate. And so, yeah, your voice and your viewpoint on things matter so much. And so I'm grateful that that's coming up for you and that you're leaning in. I see you leaning into just like, this is how I am today. And it gives me permission. Hopefully it gives our listeners permission to play and experiment with like that question, what would happen if I really showed up the way? And so far, I will say, I don't want to speak for you and you can answer this question, but so far, has it been worth it? I was going to say so far it's been worth it for you to show up that way, but instead I'll ask you, has it been worth it to show up?
100%. I think that I feel, on episode 8 now, how I'm feeling today. I feel almost like it couldn't have gone any other way. I think that it was totally worth it because from going to like having all of these, what I would call like amazing insights alone as I'm an isolated stay-at-home mom, and being like, I want to like be in community and share these ideas and like have these rich conversations and help other people. To go from like not doing that hardly at all to doing it very publicly in microphones and cameras and all that. Of course it was going to be like a fuck this. Oh no, like I kept picturing myself like I want to just crawl under something. I would just be like, I just want to crawl under a table. Yeah. Christina, there's times where I'm like, Christina, can you post my reel today? I can't see my big fat face, like not fat face, but zoomed in face. We had to adjust the camera angle because we're just like, all the episodes we recorded were like so zoomed in. Anyway, it was just like, I can't tolerate posting my face. It's so scary. It doesn't even matter. I was going through all this, but the way I see it now, looking back, is we had this foundation to build of what is this conversation? Who are we? How do we see ourselves on this conversation? And in the midst of that, I'm touring all of the lessons I have learned to get to the wisdom I wanted to share on a podcast. That's kind of painful. It's like sometimes, like, have you heard of like healing being kind of like a spiral. It's like we change and we grow, but we revisit some of the same things as our new selves as we change and we grow. And so I think when I say it couldn't have been any other way, I'm like, of course I'm going to feel like this scared little girl that's terrified that she's going to like lose belonging if she actually goes through with this, that I'm actually going to find out that I don't matter. This is going to be it. I'm going to figure it out. Or like someone's going to get mad at me in a way that makes me crawl back into being small. And so I think that I'm feeling more settled because like, and I'm feeling some of that, like you're saying, proud of us. Like it was actually the flavor of season 1, I would say. It was like a lot harder. Like it wasn't as much play as I wanted, but I'm proud of us because we were building a foundation so that we can play. And what I mean by play is like having more guests and being like, how do you see it? And how does that feel in my body? Do I even agree with you? Like actually getting to like, we planted the seeds. Now they get to like sprout and we like see what grows.
Yeah.
And so I think that I just had to be tender with myself and not give up and lean into our friendship when it's like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Everything in my life outside of this podcast is changing and I'm uncomfortable and I don't feel good and you are having a lot going on. Like, why are we doing this? We're not making any money. Like, what is going on? Like, does this even matter? So I'm really glad that we pushed through because I think it does matter. And at the end of the day, I feel like I connected to my original reasons for doing this, which is I want to. And part of my rehumanizing journey has been reconnecting with desire. Because as good girls, it's really easy to say, well, it doesn't matter. Like, well, what do you need? Well, you know, like, well, we can't, there's so many ways, right? Like, we shouldn't do this if it doesn't make money. Like, I want to. Kristina, you want to do this with me? You're like, yes, I do. But then when we're in the middle of it, we're like, oh my God. Yeah. So just I want to bring all of me here. And I think I still do have a journey of wondering if it will be safe or not. I think that there's places I've leaned in and I'm like, I'm going to get rejected. I'm going to lose my friend Kristina. And then I'm going to hate that we did a podcast because we would have never gone in the nitty gritty of all these things if we hadn't. And kind of touching on a million things here.
Yeah, I'm like, my brain's spinning. I have all these things to say. The imagery that came to mind when you're talking about the tone, the flavor of season 1 versus where we're kind of heading is this imagery of building an actual house. And that, to me personally, like building a house wouldn't be a lot of fun. It's like very mathematic. Things need to be precise. Things need to be exact. They are important. It's like literal foundation stuff, right? When a house is built and you're moving in and you're deciding what paint you want to put on the wall, it's a little less like consequential. If we don't like it, we can change the color paint, but let's see how this looks. Let's hang this here. Like there's a little bit more of that play energy.
Like more expressive.
And even that paint imagery that's in my mind now is really important because we haven't even touched on the fact that there's like snakes everywhere in our brand.
I know.
They're in our room here and on our logo, our like podcast cover. And when I just pictured that idea of like, let's paint the wall. And then if we don't like it, we can change the wall. I know we both sometimes, and I have said, I hope I still feel this way later. Like at some point, these words are out there and someone could listen to, we could be on batch 20 or whatever, and someone could be like, oh my gosh, I just started this podcast and here's how they were talking about this thing. I don't know, whatever it is. And so for us to have this permission to like paint and repaint and repaint, you know, sleeping at last.
That was totally sleeping at last lyric. Love it.
North, if you want to hear the song North by Sleeping at Last. The courage it takes to like repaint and paint and paint. And so the snake imagery of just like, this is the skin I have right now. Episode 8, we already have literally shed a whole skin through this process of batch one. And here's the skin that I have on right now. And when I start feeling that itch and when it starts flaking away, to know, that's where we get to hold ourselves and go like, okay, like here we go. And it's that hero's journey, right? Like you get through this whole thing and you get your homecoming and then another initiation comes. Like it's not one cycle. Like we're cycling through this forever. And that's part of what we love about the imagery of a snake, is that the skin fits and it serves, and the skin is not bad because it doesn't fit anymore. It was the skin that fit for a time. And so that's like a huge theme of all of this. And when I think about reflecting on this season, I'm so grateful. I was just like looking at all our snakes and looking at our sweet little girl picture with her snake. And it's like this, yeah, I can feel like a scared little girl. I can also feel like this is the snake that I am right now. And this is my skin and it will change. And can I just like, that's the ease of like, oh, a thing is falling away. Ooh, a new thing is growing. And as we converse with other people, as we bring other people into these conversations, we're going to get all these new flavors from different people's perspectives. And so I appreciate that you're showing up the way you are, because it emboldens me to be able to do that. And I know that you're learning this and you know it in your heart, I hope, but like you do matter. And I know the feedback, we're not doing this for feedback, but we are human beings who like value feedback. And so when these stories come, like the ones that have come to you, they're deep, you know, and it's so meaningful the way that people are connecting with your story and what you have to say. So I'm grateful that you're experimenting and playing with those questions. Do I matter? And can I show up the way that I want to?
Yeah.
And as myself, it's permission, and it's so important. So
thank you for reflecting that to me. I think, yeah, there's this like outward question that's the scared little girl of, do I matter? And I think that's okay. Like she's with me. She's a part of me. Like everything you just said, I was hearing like our own words in my head of expanding to hold the whole spectrum of our human experience. And that sometimes in the creation of this podcast, I'm like, I have to filter it down to like being really good at talking. Is like, that's not all that I am. So when I had that scared little girl that's like, do I matter? And she's looking out, I get to have her like sit with me and be like, hey, that's a good question. And you might not be super satisfied with me being like, yes, of course, Weedy, you matter. But I think where I feel like I draw my power back in, because that's an energy of out, like looking out, like someone else has got to tell me I matter. And I'm not saying I don't need people, but I think even a friend telling me that, if I don't believe it for myself first, bounces off me. I'm like, cool, thank you. Like, I knew you were going to say that when I asked if I matter. I knew you were going to say yeah. So it's like I actually, you know, at the end of season 1 here, I'm actually feeling like I can feel like in my core, I feel more centered, like that I do matter. But not for some like, because look at the feedback, because look at my accolades, because look at whatever. It's, I matter because I think I came to Earth on purpose and I'm connecting to why I did and then living that. Every single person matters in that way. And I think the shedding work we're doing here is like, we will change and grow and evolve and shed, and letting it happen and not calling it good or bad. Just because, like you said, if we get to batch 20, we're going to be so different. I already see how batch 2 is going to be a different flavor, and it feels so fun and so expansive. And it's going to call different parts of us out. And it's okay that season 1, like when I listened to episode 1, I don't think anyone but us will know, but we were like, I wanted to say like butt cheeks clenched, like energy, just like, and then this, and then this, and then this. And it was like we're trying to make sure everything that we put on the spreadsheet that we said. And I listened back and I'm like, wait, we did an excellent job, but that was stressful. I want to be more easeful. I want to be more like accepting of all the parts of us. And then something I was thinking on the drive over here is your circle episode. Listen to that one if you haven't already. But you're talking about creating these spaces for women to contemplate the seasons, but also that we're cyclical beings. And I was thinking about like this sterile way I was thinking about myself of like when I'm in this white chair behind this microphone, I have to be in this certain mode. Like, no, I actually have a menstrual cycle and I fluctuate in the way that I am. And like, then if you add a human design layer onto it, like we are affected by different energies on different days. So one, it's impractical to only record episodes when we're ovulating, right? Like we can't just be like powerful creators, hear us roar. Like, but we also can't, we might schedule an episode we're really excited for and then be in a totally low mood. Can we show up in that place and trust that, I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to like not share that mood today because I don't want to. Or I'm just on the top end going to be like really excited to be here with you, but I also just want to listen to sad songs all day. Like I'm really sad. So it's really this expanding to hold all of us is bringing this ease and this flow, like you were saying, ease being like the same as authenticity. And I think it's making me so excited to continue this journey with you, whereas halfway through, I'm like, am I going to be able to keep doing this? I think the answer was no, if I'm going to expect myself to be this certain way. But if we get to like relax, we get to change the pictures on the wall and the paint and like sometimes wear a hoodie and sometimes wear a dress and like we get to be whatever we want here.
Hello.
I can do that. That sounds fun. And like the way forward for me is remembering who I am and connecting to who I am and reaching out for help when I feel like I lost it. I lost the plot of my own life and I need someone to say, hey, you do matter and here's what I see in you. So thanks for doing some of that here today.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, just even you said something about like, we're going to shed, we're going to let it shed. And there is a vulnerability to doing that publicly.
It's very scary.
But also it's great and it's beautiful. And we've both experienced a lot of healing from people who have lived authentically and let it be out there. And so, yeah, I love the way forward. The way forward is that we're going to keep leaning in and we're going to keep shedding and we're going to keep showing up and allowing ourselves to be who we are and the whole spectrum of our humanity. So we are done with our first batch, which just feels amazing. And we're excited. The schedule is coming together and we're just like,
we have way more
very
guests
excited.
next time.
Yes.
And we are so pumped.
It's like all of our dream people were when we were forming this, seeing who's coming is really exciting. So logistically, we have a couple weeks that we will not be releasing new episodes, but we'll still be active on socials. So if you aren't following us yet, at Good Girl Gone Human on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, we will put information out about when the next episode will come out for batch 2. And I know we have a lot of friends who are like, oh my gosh, there's already 7 episodes out and I need to like catch up. And so this is kind of your break to catch up if, life has gotten in the way and you want to listen and know that we are coming back and we're really excited. But this felt really nice today to just like reflect and settle in and kind of punctuate. I love a good ceremonious moment. So to just like have a season end and be like, well, on to the next thing is not my style. So I love that we sat here and that this was, a great idea of yours to go like, let's just reflect on what has been brought up in us in this process and how we're feeling and connect with each other. And so I'm just so grateful for you. I am like elated thinking about the next version of this and the next step that it takes. And I'm just really excited to be here with you. So thank you.
Same with you. And I just, as we're like reflecting looking back. Now I'm like looking forward and feeling this excitement. And I just want to invite you and invite myself to like continue to reach out. If like you sit in the chair and you're like, this actually, my inner critic is like fully driving right now, like to like support each other and leaning in and not trying to shoo away the shadows, but being like, of course it's going to come up. And then to all the humans listening, we talk about feedback matters and doesn't, whatever. Um, we would love to hear your feedback, but not in this like, oh, Holly just said she wonders she matters. Please, like, stoke her ego. No, I'm feeling into this deep kind of what I shared around. I'm so grateful that there's other content creators that were alone in their rooms. Like, does this even matter? Hit post. Oh well, we'll see. And there's no way I could like tell them how much like I'm glad that they showed up. So rather than like give us feedback to make us feel good, we want to accentuate here at the end of batch 1. We want community to form around this. We do like, I don't know if I should say this, but like have ideas in the way back of our mind that aren't ready to be born yet of creating spaces for us to meet as a community. But for now, let us know how you're impacted. Comment. You could do reviews, that would help us. But if you like this, we want to hear, and I bet you that there's other people in the comments that could relate with you. And we just really love you and we're grateful for you. And we hope that us showing up in the way that we are is just this like permission to show up in the way that you are, in the full spectrum of who you are. You're not good, bad, you're the whole spectrum, which means some days you're good, some days you're bad. You'll drop the bottles on the floor and all of it is welcome here. And we're so excited to come back and continue this journey with you all.
Yeah. I think our little sign off that we say is like also something that's just coming up in my life all the time. And I just find myself like the absolute nerdiest person ever that I like say my podcast sign off to people in real life all the time.
I actually do too.
But it's just this like, it's the thing. And so I'm excited to be able to say it to our listeners again and to you and to me, because it is the exclamation point on the work that we're doing. And we're really excited to keep doing it with you. So while we wait and while you carry on these next couple weeks and we maybe connect on socials or whatever it looks like, we want to remind you that you are an absolute badass and the most fragile thing. Treat yourself as both.
We love you. See you soon.